Another way that we often describe the ratio of a whole to a part is using a percent. And again, this often gives us a one-step equation. In setting up such an equation, it's important to observe what exactly we're taking a percent of. In other words, to observe exactly what the base is. So for example, suppose that we have the following story. Suppose an apartment manager will only accept tenants for whom the rent is no more than 40% of their monthly income. If the rent on an apartment is $800, what must the tenant's monthly income be in order to rent it? Recall from our earlier discussion that when we're talking about percents, the whole that the percent refers to is called the base. In a story, the base will always be introduced with the phrase percent of, or sometimes percent sign of. In this story, we see percent of their monthly income. Also in a story, we will refer to whatever the percent is telling us about as the portion. In this story, the portion is just the rent. We use the percent like any other part to whole ratio. Working with a percent, we'll always say that the portion equals the percent times the base. Now, it's also the case that if we're keen to do any sort of math with a percent, we have to write it as a number, as a decimal, or as a fraction. To solve this problem then, the rent, which is $800, will equal 40% of, what's our unknown? We'll call it N for income. We're now solving the one-step equation. 800 equals 40 hundredths times N. Well, the reciprocal of 40 hundredths is 140ths. Notice that yes, we could, if we like, simplify the fraction 40 hundredths or write it as a decimal in order to make the arithmetic a little bit easier. But that's not a big deal. I'm just going to have my calculator handle this for me. So, to simplify the left-hand side, 140ths times 800 is 2,000. In other words, to rent the apartment, someone needs to have a monthly income of $2,000. Notice that just like with the ratio template and the fraction template, depending on which numbers we're given and which numbers we're looking for, we may have a one-step equation, or we may just have an arithmetic problem.